Hey everyone, welcome to ST3Works. Last week we went through cylinder head removal on my 07 Audi A4 that's got valve damage. Unfortunately I had to order a camshaft locking tool. It's going to take about a week to get here. So we're actually going to put this on hold this week and we're going to switch gears a little bit and get into something different. I know, I wasn't expecting that either, but what I'm going to show you this week is how you can get a top quality and high gloss finish like this just using spray bomb. Now, by no means am I a professional, or I probably wouldn't be using spray bomb, but we're not talking about getting a professional quality paint job. What we're talking about is getting the best possible results using spray paint. And you can get some pretty decent results, but it comes down to preparation and finishing. I've actually only finished 2 of these wheels, but that's actually going to benefit this video because the other 2 are in various stages of paint, and I'll actually be able to show you the differences between them. Anyway, so this is the first one here that's been sandblasted with 80 grit. Now you can just do that by hand as well. I actually did on the first 2 wheels because I didn't have a sandblaster. Now if you look at the next wheel, this has just been painted. That's it. It hasn't been touched after that, but you can see it's got this texture and we don't want that. If you look at this next one, now this one has been finished. It's been wet sanded, it's been clear coated, and then it's been polished after that, and that just makes a world of difference. Alright, so the next step is to prep this for paint. Now the first step would be to sandblast it or sand it down, basically rough it up so you get good adhesion with the paint. If you were to do this, if you don't have a sandblaster, if you're going to do it by hand, just make sure you always crisscross your strokes when you sand. So, you know, sand it 45 degrees this way, all the way across every nook and cranny, and then do it all again, going 45 degrees in the opposite direction. So like I said, I've already got this sandblasted, so the next step after that is going to be masking it off. Anything that I don't want painted, I'm going to put tape on. So basically for this, it's just I want to keep that nice polished lip, so I'm going to tape it all off. Now when you're doing that, you want to be as accurate as possible, so get right as close to the seam as you can, and then that's going to give it that fine line when you peel it off. So now that I've got the lip taped off, once you're satisfied with the line, you know, spend the time and get it as tight as possible. Now once you're satisfied, it's important to go around and just, you know, press it on there just to make sure that none of the paint leaks through on that seam. So just push it on there and get it nice and firm all the way around. Like I said, that's the most important. Spend the time to get it perfect and just made up to that edge nice and tight. Once that's done, you can finish taping off the rest, anything you don't want paint on. And there you have it. So it doesn't have to be pretty. You just have to make sure it's nice and accurate along that inside edge, because that's what you're going to see when you peel it off. The rest of it, you're just trying to keep paint off, so it doesn't really matter. Just try and get full coverage, that's the main thing, and then make sure it's all sealed down so nothing leaks through. So now we're going to go out to my car tent, which kind of doubles as my paint booth. I'm going to get it set up for painting, and then we'll get this hung and get ready to shoot it. So it's kind of pissing rain here right now, so we're going to put it on hold for a couple minutes and we'll get back to it once it dries up a little bit. Okay, so before we hang this for paint, the next step is using paint thinner or some sort of solvent to wipe it all down, just to get all those greasy fingerprints off of there, or anything oily that's going to keep the paint from sticking and, you know, cause it to orange peel or anything like that. Now once you've got this wiped down, you got to make sure that you don't touch any of the surfaces that you're going to want painted again, so you don't get those greasy fingerprints right back on there. And when I say greasy fingerprints, I don't mean grease from working in the garage and stuff like that. Just even the oils, like the natural oils in your skin, can cause paint to orange peel like that. Next, I'm going to get it ready to hang up. I'm just going to use some mechanics wire, give it a couple of wraps. So now we're going to get ready to paint. This is the stuff I use. It's just basically an automotive grade spray paint, or this one's actually a specific wheel coating. Now when you're working with this stuff, it can get kind of messy, so just make sure you're always thinking about where your overspray is going. I've actually moved my vehicles into the driveway beside the tent so that they're out of the way, so I don't get you know, little particles and specks of paint on everything. And you don't want it on yourself either, so make sure you throw on some coveralls or whatever. It'll just keep all your clothes nice, keep your leg hairs and your eye hairs from your eyelashes from sticking together when you're done. So, you know, throw on some safety glasses. And I've breathed in enough of this shit in my life to know that it's not good for you. So even a dust mask helps, but I prefer to use a respirator, just a 3M P100, just with the little pink filters, and that's plenty. So I'm gonna suit up and I'll show you how to spray this thing. Alright, so now I'm all ready for paint. And you want to make sure you shake this up real good, like a full minute. Give it a little test, make sure it's coming out nice, yep. Alright, and when you paint, always keep it about a foot away. You go nice, easy strokes, and let off, and always start before. So when I do it, I start here, and then let off. Just nice, breezy, quick, swift little strokes. You know, you don't have to get it nice and solid on the first pass. In fact, it'll look much better if you just do, you know, 2, 3 light coats versus one big heavy one, and then you end up with runs and all sorts of nasty results. Now you can see I've done my first coat. Now you can actually do a heavy coat if you do it slowly in light coats. You start at one side, work your way to the other, and this stuff dries pretty fast. So you know, by the time you get here, you can come back and work your way back down again and try and get full coverage, you know, but just a little bit at a time. Okay, I'm going to let this dry for about a half hour or so, and then I'm going to come back and give it another coat. Okay, so this thing's ready for another coat. Now, if you notice, as I'm painting, I'm continuously shaking the can, and that's pretty important, just to make sure, because, well, especially because this is metallic, you want to keep all those particles suspended. You don't want them settling to the bottom of the can. So while the other one's drying, I'm going to show you how I prep for clear coat. Basically, we're just going to give it a once over, wet sand it with 600 grit. We'll just take that texture off with the wet sand. We don't want to take too much of the paint off, just enough that it's nice and smooth. Got the hose here, just give it a nice wet coating. Now you can do this with a bucket as well. So now we've got it wet sanded down, ready for clear coat. Now you can see I was a little aggressive on this spot here, but that can be fixed if you just touch it up and then do the same thing once it dries, feather it out with a little wet sand, and you'll never even notice that was there. I'm just going to touch up this one spot because, like I said, I was a little aggressive with it yesterday, so I'll just show you how I do that. Basically just give it a little spritz. And we'll just feather that in with a little wet sand after. So before wet sanding, I always recommend you let the paint cure before doing it. So now that we've wet sanded it down, I've got this hung up and ready for clear coat. Basically same type of paint. It's a wheel specific clear coat, wheel gloss they say. Hardens up pretty nice and gets a pretty nice finish if you polish it up. But right now we're gonna give this a spray down with the clear. Again, before doing so, make sure you hit it with that paint thinner, and again get all of that, the oils and everything off there, so we make this stick right the first time. And that's why we wet sand after, usually just with like a 2000 grit and polish, but just to get all those little imperfections out. Because as you can see, like that's a nice coat that I put on there, but it has absolutely no gloss, and it won't until you smooth it out. So unfortunately it's pouring out again, and because I want the best quality finish, I'm not actually going to be finishing these on camera this week, and I will explain why in a minute, but it's so that we can get that top quality finish that I've been talking about. But anyways, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between the different stages: paint versus clear coat versus a sanded and polished clear coat. So if you look here, this wheel is just paint, no wet sand. That's just the one I shot earlier. Now if you compare it to this one, this is the other one that I shot, but with clear coat. So that's paint and clear coat, and you can see it's a little shinier than that one, but not a whole lot. Now compared to this one, this is the finished wheel, and all that I did was I wet sanded it with 2000 grit and then just polished it, applied a polish, and then buffed it by hand. Now this is another thing, and you're not going to want to hear this, but when you're finishing or polishing these, it's best to wait around 7 days for the paint to fully cure. You know, from 5 feet away you can't tell much of a difference between the two, but if you get up close, you can see that this one I was impatient with, and I polished it the next day, about 24 hours after I clear coated it. Now if you compare it to this one, I mean, look how much more gloss there is on this. And the only thing I did differently was that I waited 7 days before polishing. Okay guys, so that's going to be it for today's episode. Hopefully you learned something, either what or what not to do when you're trying to get the best quality spray paint job that you can. If you did find this video helpful in any way, please remember to like, comment, or subscribe. And of course, I just wanted to thank you all for watching.